All right, everybody. Welcome to our first session of the Caregivers Technology and Curriculum series. Tonight we are with Science, Technology, and Engineering Liaison, Christine Lloyd. Hi, Chris.
Hey Laura, how are you tonight?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm excellent.
I'm so excited for this. You ready to get going?
I think so.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. As Laura said, I am the Science and Engineering Liaison here in Worcester Public Schools. What that means is that I'm here to support our teachers, our students, our administration, our coaches with curriculum development and curriculum implementation here in Worcester for science. And that's for grades pre-K through 12. And so one of your questions might be, well, what is curriculum? Oftentimes, when we think of curriculum, some people would think of just the textbook that you use or maybe the worksheets that come home, but it really is so much more. It's all about the learning standards, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Our teachers then break down those standards into objectives. We present those to your students, and then we attempt to get them to meet those objectives with our lessons that we teach. Sometimes it's through projects, sometimes it's through hands-on assignments, collaborative assignments. We can use books, materials, videos, all kinds of things to be able to meet these objectives. And when you put all of that together, that is what our curriculum is. So in Worcester, we do follow the Massachusetts curriculum framework. So we don't have a lot of leeway in the content that we teach. We have to teach to the standards that the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks put out for us. We do have some flexibility in how we present those frameworks and how we present that curriculum. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in science in just a minute. If you are interested to find out exactly what the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks look like, we've got a link for you right here. It does have it in multiple languages. And this will lay out for you all the content areas, not just science, and exactly what the state expects our teachers to teach and exactly what it expects our students to be able to access and learn. So I'm going to start off with primary science. And when I say primary science, what I mean is grades pre-K through 2. So pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade is what I would consider primary science. Right now, we have some digital resources for your students, which are Generation Genius. So I'm going to link out and show you that. So Generation Genius is a great resource. It has videos, it has reading material, it has activities, and I want you to see that it's all aligned up here to the standards. So these are directly aligned to our Massachusetts state standards. Our teachers can use the whole lesson. They can break it up into pieces. So you may see some of these coming home with Dr. Jeff is his name. So if you see Dr. Jeff, that's our Generation Genius piece to our curriculum. We also want to make sure in our curriculum for primary science that we're really focused on our best practices. And in science, our best practices are phenomena-based, which is observation and questioning, and the C of CER. And I'm going to explain what both of those mean. So when I think of phenomena-based science, what I'm really trying to say is that we're trying to get the students to look at an event or look at a picture or look at something in the real world, make some observations about it, and then ask some questions. And this is something that came out about 5 or 6 years ago, and it's research based with the next generation science standards and with our Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, who develops our frameworks and our curriculum here in Massachusetts. And it's all about getting kids to ask questions. So then we also have, when we think about our best practices, the C of the CER. And those are your claim, evidence, and reasoning. So here is just a little bit of research on claim, evidence, and reasoning and why we use it in our science frameworks. So a claim is what you may have thought of like your hypothesis, your answer to the question. Your evidence is the data that's going to support that claim. And then your reasoning is why your evidence meets that claim or the science behind it. I do want you to know that all of this is linked in the slide deck, which you will have access to. So you can go ahead and link out to all of these things that I'm showing you. I also wanted to show you an example of what a claim, evidence, or reasoning might look like in a classroom. So here, the students are asked to make a claim, evidence, and reasoning statement based on the diagram here. Where would the lunar eclipse fall? And so you can see that they have a model or a diagram. They would be asked to pick a point on this model to say where would the moon be in the lunar eclipse. And then on the next slide, they might go ahead and make the claim. What is their evidence for that claim, and why did they pick it? And again, can be all done remotely, which is great. And it helps guide the students' thinking about our scientific topics, which are sometimes hard to understand. When we think about our schedule in primary science, you should be seeing your child or your student have science twice a week, maybe 40 minutes a week. You might see some projects on Friday coming home that are more hands-on, getting them to kind of investigate and ask questions on their own. And then the last piece that I want to talk about for primary science is really this idea of DESE's guidance. And when I'm thinking of DESE's guidance, again, DESE is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And they are the ones, again, that make our curriculum for us, or make our frameworks for us, rather, that we develop the curriculum for. And what they've asked us to do for this remote learning period is not to send home any materials that could be considered dangerous for students. And so as a team, we will go ahead as we get more into our remote learning calendar and think about what are some safe things to send home for students to be able to do these hands-on investigations. And so those discussions are happening now, but I thought I would share for you exactly what DESE's guidance is for all of our science work. And that would include our primary students as well. So if I go down to intermediate science, now what I'm thinking of is our grades of 3, 4, 5, and 6 here in Worcester. So that is the top end of our elementary schools, and this is what we consider our intermediate level science. You'll see that you're going to see a lot of the same things. You're still going to see Generation Genius. This is still a resource we're going to use for our students. The materials that they have in that supplementary program are just, I would say, like amped up a little bit. They're going to be able to cover more rigorous content, more in-depth vocabulary, but they still have all of the bits and pieces that teachers can choose to use as a whole or in parts with your students. We are still using phenomena-based learning. We are still asking questions. It's really important in our science curriculum here in Worcester is that we want students to be able to ask questions and not just answer them. And then, of course, now that we're in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade or intermediate science, we're not just going to use the C or the claim of CER. We're really going to use that claim, evidence, and reasoning piece. So we're asking students to be able to now come up with all three and not just the claim. The schedule would be the same. I think if your student is in a 5th grade, they probably will have science every day. We do have an MCAS in 5th grade that is for science, and that test is based on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade standards that are, the Massachusetts makes for us. So once we get into the 4th or 5th grade, we sometimes see what we call departmentalization, and that means that they may have a science teacher that teaches them specifically science. So you may see your kids having more science in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th grade. And again, that DESE guidance is going to be the same as far as what we are sending home to students and what their expectations are for remote learning science. Laura, are there any questions over there in the chat? Should I keep going?
Nope, we're all set, so you can move on to middle school.
Perfect. So middle school science, really exciting this year that we have 2 digital resources for you. So in Worcester Public Schools, when we think middle school science, we're thinking 7th and 8th grade. And we have the McGraw-Hill resource, which is their digital textbook. And we also have Gizmos. And Gizmos is what's going to supplement our hands-on learning. And it's a digital tool for lab simulations. And this is really exciting that we have this year. I'm going to show you both of those. But I want you to take special notice that on the right side of the screen here, in order to access McGraw-Hill, which is their digital textbook, and all of the resources that a teacher may assign or their Learn Smart, in order to access the Gizmos, the simulation, students must first go through Clever. And so if you're not sure what Clever is, it is our single sign-on or SSO platform that students would go to. It would sign them on with their Google ID for Worcester Public Schools, and then that would then transfer them over to any apps that a teacher may want them to use that Worcester Public Schools has purchased. Laura, is that a pretty good description of what Clever is?
I think that's a great description. I just want to also add that on any district issued devices that students are using, when they open up Chrome, the Chrome browser, one of the tabs that opens is Clever. So we push that out directly to them. Hopefully families are having an easy time finding that on a regular basis.
Perfect. I love it. And that's really important because it's going to get them everywhere they need to be. So always start with Clever.
Right.
All right, so I want to show you gizmos. So one of the really great things about gizmos and the reasons why we're using this as our supplement for hands-on science in middle school is that you can see it's directly aligned to our frameworks, to our curriculum frameworks. So I can look for a specific framework and I can find an investigation that's going to match that framework as the teacher, and then I can go ahead and think about assigning that. So if I looked at the magnetic motion one, that's right here. You'll see as the teacher, when I click on this, it gives me options. I can have some student exploration sheets to guide them. I have my answer key, I have my teacher guide, and I have my vocabulary sheet. And this is really important for the teachers. This is something that we would normally be doing in class as a hands-on investigation. And now that we're remote, and even when we go hybrid, there's going to be some limits to how we share materials. And so this is going to help our students and teachers to still meet those modeling standards and those hands-on standards, but in a safe way. And so when they launch the gizmo, they'd be able to play with it, put in their models, go ahead and take screenshots, and then be able to communicate this to their teacher to show that they understand these modeling standards. And so we're really excited to have gizmos for our middle school science. You'll also notice that the themes of best practices are still carrying all the way through. And so we wanted to make sure that we have this consistency in our curriculum for Worcester Public Schools. We are still using CER. We're still making claims based on evidence and being able to explain those claims with our science content, our reasoning. We're still using phenomena-based instruction. We still want kids to not just answer questions, but to really ask questions, to make sense of the world around them in terms of science. For your science schedule in middle school, you should be seeing science every day. Unless they're on a rotating schedule where they might have like periods 1 through 3 on Monday and then periods 4 through 7 on Tuesday. But this is definitely what we would consider a departmentalized subject in middle school, which means that they have a special teacher just for science. The DESE guidance as far as hands-on materials, again, remains the same no matter the grade level. So that's also staying consistent for each piece. So then finally, we have high school science. So in high school, we do have our graduation requirement, which is to be able to pass science MCAS. In Worcester Public Schools, we normally offer that in their freshman year, and that would be for biology. As we know, the classes of 2021, 2022, and 2023 do not need to meet that science requirement, and so they do not have to take the MCAS for science. Our freshmen this year do. And that brings me to one of the resources that we have under our digital resources. When you look at our frameworks and our curriculum for science, they are no longer the defining a term or explaining a concept. It really is all about our science practices, which is modeling, developing, reasoning. And so the hands-on piece to our science is super important. We have 3 digital resources to help our students and our teachers to meet these needs. The first is McGraw-Hill. Those are for your physics and your biology students. The second is Sapling. That is for your chemistry students. And those are both of those digital textbook resources. And then we have Labster. Labster is something new that we have this year as a supplement for our curriculum that's going to be able to reach all subjects, and it's going to be that virtual hands-on experience. When we look at Labster, it's going to meet the needs for our AP students. It's going to meet the needs of our forensic students, of our environmental science students, all of them. And what's great about Labster is that no matter what simulation I choose, it really does model for students exactly what's happening in the lab, as if they were in the lab. What I love about this the most is that the safety is required. So, for example, if I wanted to go ahead and go into this marine biology lab, the first thing that I'm asked to do is put on my PPE. I have to put on my gloves. I have to put on my goggles before they're going to allow me to move further in the investigation. It is virtual reality, which means if I move my mouse to the right, it looks like I'm looking to the right in the room. And if I move my mouse pad to the left, it looks like I'm looking to the left in the room. So it has that kind of video game aspect for our students. The other great piece about LabSer, besides all of the frameworks that it meets, is that it also brings in those real lab investigative techniques. So, for example, if I'm doing an investigation here in medical genetics and I take my pipette, which is just a little like syringe, and I put it in water and then I don't change it and I put it in the next chemical, it will be not infected, I'm sorry, but it will be contaminated. There we go. It'll be contaminated, and then the student will be told you have to start over again. And so we really made sure that the supplement that we were going to get for our students was going to be as real to life as possible, knowing that we were not going to be able to offer them these hands-on experiences like we normally do in our classrooms. Again, you'll notice for high school, our best practices and our of CER, claim evidence reasoning, and phenomena-based instruction are staying the same. So we have that continuous all the way through our grade levels. The schedule for high school, again, you should be having science every day if that's one of your students' courses that they're taking on their schedule. It depends. Most of our freshmen take biology. Most of our sophomores take chemistry. And then our juniors, most would take physics. Some might take a human anatomy. Some might take a forensics, environmental science. You do have some choice. And then, of course, we also offer our AP subjects in science as well. So again, my name is Christine Lloyd. I am in the Office of Curriculum and Professional Learning. We are here to support all learners. And I wanted to thank you for watching tonight.